All right, good morning, everyone. We're here at the Governance Working Group call on Wednesday, April 15th, 2020. And let's get going. I'd love to hear the stand up for this week and what happened over the past week and what everyone's working on right now and whether you've got any blockers and what you're looking forward to accomplishing over the next week.
I guess I can go first. I have a short update this week. The main thing I've been working on is a proposal for the SIP, the Stack Improvement Proposal Process. Proposal for the proposal process. I guess it makes it a meta proposal, which Brittany had suggested we do. I think it's a really great idea. Obviously Brittany will give her update about foundation stuff later, but it sounds like one of the very first concrete things that the foundation can do when it exists is to take, let's say, stewardship. I don't like the words control or ownership, but let's say stewardship of the SIP process or play a role in it. And I think it's a great idea. It's a very straightforward kind of concrete thing. You know, we can learn from, we've mentioned it many times, of course, but we can learn from what organizations like the Zcash Foundation have done here. Yeah, so I spent some time, and it was actually really a fun, interesting project because I've been aware of, so I know the Ethereum improvement proposal, the EIP process, pretty well. And I've been aware of others, and I had not really done a deep dive on them. And so I had a chance to go back and read through the history of the Bitcoin improvement proposal process, the BIP process, as well as the ZIP process from Zcash, all the way back to the Python enhancement proposal process, the PEP process. And so there's actually an interesting lineage here. BIPs descend from PEPs, and EAPs and ZIPs descend from BIPs. So anyway, did a bunch of research on reading on that, took a lot of notes, drew up a proposal for what we may want to do for Stack's improvement proposals on the basis of those things, with, of course, a few suggested changes. It's pretty close to being in a place where I can share with everyone for feedback. I think I'm waiting for some initial feedback from Brittany, and yeah, that's my update. No other blockers. Probably continue to work on that and just overall governance proposal stuff in the coming days.
That sounds really exciting. I'm looking forward to taking a look at that when it's available. I'm really interested in how that will work, so I can't wait to see what you've been working on.
Yeah, I know your feedback.
Anything else that you wanted to share?
Well, we can get that shared out very, very soon. So it's just on my backlog there. So thanks, Wayne, for that.
Yeah, no, I think that's it for me. It was a fun project, and I think the final result is interesting. Yeah, it's a stand-up. I don't want to take more time. I'll stop there. I could say a lot more about it because it is genuinely like an interesting thing. But if there's time later, maybe we can come back and I can share some additional thoughts. But I don't want to take up more time during stand-up. Thanks for listening.
Anyone else have anything to share for this week?
Well, I have done. I've been doing two subjects essentially. One is reading about the general world governance and some other governance issues. You know, there's a lot of being talked about that because of the situation of the pandemic. So then how the governments and countries are trying to cope with that. Also the international agencies, how they're doing that. And then there's some conflicts, as you know, that the president of the United States said that they're not funding the World Health Organization. So there's so many things because of this problem of governance. And so there's a lot of things from that side that also I've been trying to do. There's a lot of reading and understanding what's going on. Also, I've been trying to make the colleagues and the friends here in the area all that to fill up the survey. So I hope the numbers of respondents has increased in this last week.
Thank you, Philip.
I didn't check recently, but I'm actually going to check right now how many responses we have on the survey. I'll maybe post it as a text message here.
Thanks, Lane. Yeah, on that, I know I mentioned this last week, but I included a little note or two notes in the April or quarterly newsletter that's meant to go out, I think either this week or early next week. I think that the Mitchell and some of the other folks are just getting some final review, but once that goes out, there should be a pretty big increase in the number of responses we get on the survey. That'll go out to a pretty big list. So I'm excited for that. Something else that I worked on was posting some issues to GitHub, asking for some responses that I could use for the governance working group blog update that we talked about a little bit last week. So if you have some time, go in there, check out the issues, and see what you can contribute to the blog.
Thank you, Jenny. Following up on that, I am working on some sort of a general update of where we have been, where we started at, and where we are now, and looking and focusing in on the questions of that have been raised by the community, and then dovetailing that into the things that you posted yesterday on GitHub. So I'll contribute a little and then hope to see everyone else's contributions.
Awesome. Thanks, Juliet. Looking forward to seeing those too. And if you have things to contribute and they're, sort of bullet points in your mind, feel free to drop that into the comments too. I think anything is helpful. They don't need to be final drafts or anything like that.
Will do. That makes it easier for me. Anyone else have something to add to the stand-up this morning?
Well, I'll just jump on real quick. So for me, I'm still just working down the same list. I didn't get to as much as I hoped to last week, so I'm just putting that on my plate again with some of the GitHub updates. And Jenny, I saw those extra issues in there. That's awesome. I'm excited to look through those, and I'll try and get in there where I can. And I know I owe Lane some review and updates too. So that's going to be my goal for this week, and no blockers on my end.
Thank you. Wonderful. All right, so let's move from if we don't have any more stand-ups, let's move into the main portion of the agenda. And the first thing that we have on the agenda is the community survey. Lane, are you going to be talking about this?
I don't have anything to add since last week. So I just posted in the chat, but for the benefit of people who may be watching a recording, I did check. We're at 44 total responses. That's plus 36 since we released it. I think that represents in percentage terms, a pretty big uptick since last week. So that's great. And as Jenny said a moment ago, it's going to go out to a wider audience via a newsletter in the next few days, which is exciting. So if I say more, I'll just be repeating the same thing I always say, which is I said last week as well, which is like we should be thinking about next steps and what to do with the data, basically. So still an open question to everyone.
Any questions or contributions by anyone else about the community survey?
Yeah, I have realized that the people here around in South America, Latin America, they have a challenge to write in English because, of course, most of the many questions are open response or open answers. So they have to write in English. So that's one of the issues that I've seen, and that people take several days in order to answer those surveys. The struggle with English.
Any thoughts around that, Philip? How we can resolve that? Because I could see that would be a real blocker for someone who, I know that it would take me more time, and then I might put it aside and not get back to it.
Probable is to just to let them write in the language that they want. That's what we do. For example, if we have something written in English, we just, even though the questionnaire is in Spanish, we just put it in English, and well, it's a problem of the person that reads, but it's not so difficult reading than writing. So, and then so many ways of translating the text that probably won't be so difficult, but maybe have that option, say, okay, because the most important thing is to have the ideas of what the feelings and the participation is one of the very most important issues. So if they write in Russian, so it will be good to have something in Russian.
Yeah, I think having people feel that they can write in their responses in their own language is very open and welcoming, and makes them feel that they are able to really contribute to the working group, to the governance issues. So I noticed that on the forum there was I don't know if this is a new person, but someone did respond that they had answered the questions on the survey, and then they also answered additional thoughts and ideas that they had. So I thought that was really interesting and a good indicator that people are taking the survey seriously, looking at it, thinking about it, and wanting to contribute. I also saw on Discord there was another person who, again, I don't know if they're new, but they also were interested in resources and finding out more about governance and what the governance working group was. So I thought that was really another exciting trend. Even if it's just 2 people posting, there's more. That means there's more interest out there. So I think that these are all good things that the survey can stir up amongst the community. Any other thoughts about the survey? So
I think
going back to
on
the
the
agenda, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Juliet. I was just going to say, I do think that Philip's point about translations is a pretty big issue. And I've been thinking about this recently and wondering whether there's an easy way to get help on that from community members, because it's something I've been thinking about for testnet documentation. It's actually it's one of the community challenges that folks can help with, and I wonder if it's as easy as just putting out a GitHub issue and sharing that around to our community members and saying, if anyone knows a language other than English and has some time to translate parts of this, that would be super helpful. And yeah, just curious if just putting that out, that call to action, could get us moving on the translations, because that is a big deal since we have so many community members around the world.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, since it's going to come up repeatedly. So it's something we should definitely think about, whether it's for the community survey or for the testnet or other things in the governance working group. I really think it's something that we, should take some moves on so that we can make sure that everybody is able to contribute in the language of their choice. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I definitely want to jump in and agree on that too. I made a note and plan to kind of create an issue around the idea, because I think it's something we should definitely talk about. And it's an interesting point. I just had it come up with Blockstack Connect, coming from the COVID-19 team doing that Corona Tracker app. And they just translated their app into a whole bunch of languages, and they used a spreadsheets that people could get into, kept it very simple. So I'd like to take a little bit of a look at their process and maybe even lean on some of those same people for help. So I think it's perfect timing. We're looking into that, and just want to say I support that idea too.
I think that sounds really great, Jason, to see how they have addressed it. And I did see some buzz on that they were translating it into a number of different languages. So great idea. Thank you. So if we don't have any more contributions or discussion or ideas about the community survey or about language translation issue, I'll move on to the blog post outline. So, so this is the blog post for the community survey. Am I correct? That's what I'm understanding as I look at the agenda.
Yeah, no, I think I understand it the same, and just wanted to say there's an issue on GitHub that we're going to also look at creating a little project board for it so we can work through it pretty quickly. And I believe, is there anything else that you want to update us on, Jenny, for this one?
Yeah, actually, sorry, I was confused for for a second there about what was being asked, but it can definitely cover the survey, but I think it's an opportunity to give updates on anything the group has been working on in general. And you know, I realize like this blog could come out at any time. It could come out later and there might be more to share. It could have come out earlier as like a debut for the governance working group, but there's nothing stopping us from writing more than one or posting an update. So I thought now is good of a time as ever. So it can definitely cover the survey. And I think the original idea was to put a blog out there to get more responses. But I think as I started thinking about it more, I realized it's just a good opportunity to share some of our thoughts about the Blockstack ecosystem, where we wanted to go. And as Juliet mentioned, there are some newer folks sharing their thoughts. And I think something like this blog could inspire more people to get engaged in participating in these discussions more regularly.
And I think that's a great idea. I've really been inspired by, Jason, I'm going to mention you again. I'm really inspired by some of the work he's done on the business model group, particularly on the forum, and making sure that there's blog posts there. I think that's really good to pull things, whether it's from GitHub or whether we have from Discord, and you know, have them in the forum or in a blog post so that there are more people able to access what we're doing here on the governance working group, and what we've been working on, and the big ahas that we've come up with over the last month or so. So I think that that's really important. I saw that Jason said something about a 10-part series. Anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually have a 10-part series of articles on building good blockchains, and part of that is governance stuff. And I'm not sure if that's what he was referring to when he said that, but it actually did start out as a single article. So these things do happen. I just realized I had a lot more to say than I thought I did. Yeah, I wanted to reiterate everything that Jenny said. I agree with all of that. Thank you for sharing that. Just two quick thoughts to add. The first is, like, I don't think any of us know exactly what this will contain until everyone has a chance to kind of weigh in. And that's some of the beauty here of it, is that it's a decentralized process. And I think that governance means different things to different people, as we've seen. So I'm really excited to see thoughts that other people have on it that will hopefully make it into the final article. And then one thing that I had suggested to Jenny that we include, and I'll make sure this is also in GitHub now that there's a place there to discuss it, is just kind of like the importance of governance in general, right? So I think that we could zoom all the way into some of the specific initiatives we're doing. I think we could also talk more about the Blockstack and Stacks ecosystem, as Jenny mentioned in the article, if we want to. If it were up to me, I'd probably include a little bit about why governance matters now more than ever. And kind of to Philip's point earlier, you know, this is kind of not just about blockchain ecosystems, it's kind of about, you know, issues we're facing as a species and as a society and the world at large. and maybe even including examples of some things that have happened recently in blockchain governance, because there's been quite a few of these. The sort of Steemit Justin Sun thing that played out for anyone who followed that has been really interesting to watch. And so I think there's some positive and negative examples out there, just to reinforce why governance is important and interesting.
Yeah, I think it's really important to take it from our current world events to blockchain world events, to be able to give a bigger vision of what we're talking about with governance. I really like that a lot. Thank you, Lane. Any other thoughts about the blog post? Any ideas, any burning questions?
Is there a time frame that we would want to put something out there, you know, on a regular basis or not? I mean, I think there's been just in the research from the past and the stuff I shared, I'm sure there's some content there that could be a blog post, but maybe it's more about like sort of the mission of that blog post that would be most helpful to serve our goals.
Yeah, I think there's, I know the things that you've created, there's a lot of information there. And obviously everything on the GitHub and what Lane's created, there's a lot of information. So many things that we've shared on these calls, as well as external documents that have been made available. So I think we have quite a bit. So Jenny, when do we have a deadline of when we need to get something together for this first blog post?
No, I haven't set a deadline yet. I've mentioned it, and I think it's something that we can get working on as long as we can get a pretty good draft together. I think we can get it out pretty soon. So probably the sooner the better. I know that's not a great answer, but I didn't want to put a deadline on it, especially with things like testnet coming up. So, and I wanted to check with the group too to see what was actually possible. But we can aim for something like in the next 2 weeks or so, at least to get a draft together.
That makes sense, to have some time to get a draft and pitch it to everyone and see what the thoughts are, and if people want to add things and all of that. So I think that makes sense. Brittany, did you have some ideas about a regular monthly blog post? Or
Yeah, I think as we kick off the foundation, I'm happy to give that update after as well. Having just updates that we can share with the community of kind of things going on in the community would be helpful. Like, I think these calls are great to kind of get different perspectives. And I know Discord also, there's a number of threaded conversations kind of always going on. So maybe it's just helping to like pull out something that's been of interest and then use a blog post to kind of call out, you know, the things that are happening, but also, you know, if there's a particular avenue in which we're looking at. So maybe like the next one around the Stacks improvement proposals, you know, maybe some of the lessons learned there or how we're thinking about it, and just putting that in a public piece. Because I know not, you know, the members of this call are smaller. I know we have people who watch the recordings, but maybe a blog post is a better medium for more input. So yeah, I can take that as a thing to brainstorm about, you know, just a cadence to publish to the community, and kind of rallying a group maybe around helping publish that.
yeah, I completely agree. I think that both Jason and Jenny mentioned that they're creating a project on GitHub and for the first blog post, but we can start moving forward. I think everybody has some input about that this is something that should be an ongoing. So I like this idea of starting with the initial one for the community survey, sort of an intro, and then doing the Stacks improvement, the SIP proposal, and talking about that. And that's all very timely. I think that sounds great. Any other ideas or thoughts about this?
Yeah, that's very important, you know, to be more say more expressive or more outgoing or more you call it lose your shyness or something like that. So then, because you know that I'm surprised that when yesterday we had a Blockstack Chile, but it looks like we're going to transform it into Blockstack Latin America or South America, whatever, because people from different places are coming and are interacting. So you know, still, you know, the surprise of the architecture, or you know, trying to solve you know, the property of the data and all that, and so that just in this side of the world, just discovering the concept of it. So imagine, you know, in the same thing as the virus, that every week is increasing the awareness of the problem that we're trying to solve with the Blockstack technology, and that's what I'm trying to apply that to our solutions. So whatever we do in order to be more expressive, and also share all the people that will come, that will be wonderful. But because we are actually getting organized, you know, on the way, running, and yeah, that's all.
Yeah, and I just wanted to chime in too. I think that would be a really fun place to put kind of a consistent call to action, maybe as a footer to each of those blog posts, because then we can point people back to the notes we have after each meeting, where the video recordings are. We have the regular written updates, and then kind of a direction on issues and projects, which could highlight more of what we're working on that particular month. So yeah, I think there's a lot of room to use that as a way to reach out to more people, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of the call to action, because then that really leads to engagement. I like the idea of being more expressive, Philip, really getting over shyness and being a lot more expressive about what we're doing, and including, you know, that call to action out to other members of the community. So I think we've got some really fantastic ideas about this blog post and a continuing updates or continuing blog post. So I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about it. All right, so if there's any other thoughts on the blog post?
I'm going to agree again with everything everyone said. I think that there's like not a lot of very good content out there in blockchain governance. And I think something that like I struggled with over the past couple of years as I was trying to learn about it and deep dive on it is just finding sources that I can rely on. It's gotten a little better. There's a couple of kind of reliable knowledge bases or newsletters. And so one thing we might want to do is kind of look at what some other folks are doing and see what we may or may not want to emulate. Anyway, I think it's a great idea. I think putting our brand on it helps both the brand, and I think it also helps people get awareness of, you know, StacksGov as a brand, or the Stacks Foundation as a brand. But I think it can also help us like recruit more people to participate as well. So great ideas.
Thank you, Lane. I think that's really important to have the have a knowledge base, as you mentioned. Some things we can all take a look at going forward when we're writing our blog posts, contributing to the blog posts. So I think that's important. And then, as you said, mentioned about the brand. So I think this has really been very exciting discussion today. So I think if there's anyone else any other ideas about the blog post, continuing blog posts, any thoughts, any subject matter beyond what we've already talked about? Or adding to what we've already talked about? All right, let's move on to, so Brittany, are you ready to give a discussion about the Stacks Foundation update?
Sure. Oh, I was trying my cool video background, but it's not working. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So, so with the foundation, we've been, like I said, learning a lot about just the different types of statuses for companies that exist. And I think that, we've been looking at US nonprofits. The C3 is probably the most common. It means that you're doing all charitable work, but there's some other ones too, like a C4, which is very similar, a C6, which is more a member organization, and then a C7, but that's a little bit different. I think we've ruled that one out. So we're still narrowing down between the C3, the 4, and the 6. The thing is that each has its own restrictions. So with the C3, within a few years of operating, you have to have a certain percentage of all your proceeds coming from donations. So that would require like soliciting donations from a large group of people. And I think, and I'd be curious to get people's thoughts here as well, but the concern with that is that if we need to constantly solicit a number of donations year after year, and it has to be from a certain number of people in order to be eligible, that requires a lot of funding and effort just to the fundraising side of the business. And it's less about sort of delivering on our mission, which is around education. It's around supporting the open source technology and being able to give grants and things like that to members of the community. So with that being our lens, things like a C4 looks like a better fit because it's less about charitable donations. So if there are donations, unfortunately, people can't write those off. There is no tax benefit for donating, but it doesn't require that the business, in order to keep status, has to raise like certain amount of funds through independent donations. So with those things considered, we're just, sussing out with Deloitte any other anticipated hurdles that could come up from what we want to deliver on. And so what we're planning on doing is incorporating a non-stockholder corporation. And then once we have more clarity on the type of exemption that we would want to apply for, if we do decide on that, like a C4 or a C3, then we would just apply for that status at a later point. So we won't yet fund this organization, but we will have a separate entity which can, start setting up its own website, its own, ownership of different aspects of the digital community that right now are still under the PBC umbrella. So we want to start that really, micro separation that's happening in the short term. So that's where we're at today. So I'll pause there if there's questions about any of those. And part of this is just sharing with you guys what I'm learning as we're learning it. Because even with a lot of information on the web, it wasn't exactly clear to me, which one would be a good fit or not.
Brittany, thanks for the update. I love the idea of being lean and having a minimum viable foundation, or I guess entity to start with, because it means we can move faster and do some of the things you're describing. I wanted to share a thought here, which I think might be helpful for some folks. And Brittany, please correct me if I get any of this wrong, but having established a nonprofit myself a few years back, one thing that I found very confusing was that, so all the designations, all the 501c, 3, 6, 7, et cetera, those are all IRS tax designations. Those are all at the federal level, right? And the important distinction here is that this entity which is being established can be something like a Delaware C corporation or something, right? And I think naively in our minds, we think corporation is not a nonprofit and these two things are opposed. That's actually not the case, right? And so what I learned through this process, and again, Brittany, correct me if it's different here, is that this thing can start out as an ordinary corporation with shareholders, or there's types that don't have those. and that's a state level entity, right? And then there's a state level nonprofit status, but there's also a federal nonprofit status. And so those things can come later. So I wanted to share that. I think that's helping me understand some of this process.
Yeah, thanks. That's exactly right. So that distinction too was not clear to me. And for me, I've always, my assumption going into it was a 501c3 means like you're a charity. People view you as doing things that are beneficial to a community. But if you're a corporation, that's a for-profit, sort of entity that's competing in that aspect. So you're right. Those things can be both. You could be a corporation and be a 501c3. You can also be a public benefit corp and be a nonprofit, or get that sort of federal tax exemption status. So, that was like another thing, maybe a PBC instead of just a regular corporation, but we can always sort of change those later as it requires more distinct definitions in the charter when you get set up initially. And it has more like reporting overhead. It has like a number of other things. But that was the path we took with Blockstack PBC, obviously a public benefit corp. So we're familiar with that side as well. But yeah, so I think what's good is that we can go ahead and get the entity set up. Another interesting aspect is just that because of what's happening with the sort of like countrywide shutdown, is that a lot of the organizations that help establish entities, like even in Delaware, or provide tax exemption status, are moving very slowly because most employees are working from home or they're not working. So that tax status, may take 3 months in like a normal time. So we've been advised that they don't know how long that could take. It could take 3 months, 6 months, a year. No one really knows at this point. Hopefully it won't take that long, but it's another reason to go ahead and try and start the entity now and establish that separation, so we don't have to wait on a timeline that's kind of unknown of when it will actually apply. But the mission of the org is still the same of, some of the things I mentioned, which all qualify under the nonprofit mandate of, it's about education, it's about funding grants, it's about research, contributing to open source, all of those things. So none of those activities are aimed to be for profit or, commercializing anything.
Yeah, exciting. I'm really excited to hear that that the organization's going to get set up, and I think that makes so much sense to get the corporation set up and then start putting together the website and all the other materials to where people can start to go to a place online and understand what the Stacks Foundation is, and I think that all makes sense. And I also echo the sentiment of how slow things are happening on the government side right now, given the current situation. It's extremely, extremely slow. Things that would have gotten done in 2 weeks are dragging on for several months. So very, very slow. So I think this is really a fantastic step.
And then after this is maybe some more of the fun stuff. So we have some URLs like stacks.org, I think is the URL that we're thinking of using. We'd picked up a few URLs when we knew we were starting a foundation. Someone on our team just went in and got like stacks.foundation and I think stacksfoundation.com, but I think stacks.org, which is very short, which I like, maybe the URL that we use. And then just thinking through like what a logo might look like, I think we would probably make it a derivative of the existing logo, just to make it quick, simple, easy, recognizable to start. But we can have a whole separate brand identity over the long term. But those are more fun things. Like I don't see those as like, priority number one. But if you guys have ideas on any of that too, those things will be coming down. Because yeah, I think I also grabbed some Twitter handles like stacks.org, like stacks_org. So hopefully we'll be able to post updates and actually communicate on behalf of the foundation brand instead of just PBC going forward.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody have any contributions, thoughts, and ideas? I knew this was going to be an amazing day today.
I love that attitude.
All right, folks. So that's the last part of our agenda today. So any other updates? Anybody else have anything they want to talk about, contribute, new things that have come up? I think I'm really excited about the Stacks Foundation organization getting set up, getting this you know, it's like rolling out that first step. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, thanks. So one other fun thing about that is that the Zcash Foundation actually recommended Brian Cave, and in particular an individual named Keith, who's done a lot of work thinking about this and helped them incorporate their entity as well as apply for their status. So we're working with Keith as well. So hopefully we'll be able to get that process started, but it's great. Like when you get to work with operators who already have a lot of knowledge around a very new space. Because most lawyers, when you say, oh, we're doing, you know, crypto and open source, but we don't want to charge for it, whatever, it can be a learning curve. So I feel really grateful that, you know, the general crypto community is very generous with, you know, being with referrals and being helpful. So I feel like that's a real benefit.
Excellent.
Great. Well, thank you. And Juliet, thank you so much for hosting and running this meeting. It's really great and very efficient. So perfect.
Thank you, Juliet.
Thanks, Juliet.
Thank you very much, and have a safe week.
Yeah, have a healthy week, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
All right, and just a quick note, our meeting next week will be on Wednesday, the 22nd. So that'll be for call number 9.
Update.
Great. Thanks, Ethan.
I think we
Thank you.
can adjourn.